The morning was bright over the small farming colony of Grayfield. The twin suns had just risen, spreading a warm glow across the dusty plains. Tom adjusted his hat and stepped out of his farmhouse. Today was market day, and that meant fresh. Supplies, maybe some rare treats if he was lucky. He locked the door, climbed onto his old hover cart, and started the short ride into town. Grayfield was not a busy place. It had a single main street lined with a handful of shops, a few eating stalls, and a trading square where merchants from nearby systems came to sell goods. Most days, the market was filled with farm equipment, seed bags, and dried grains. But sometimes, once in a while, something unusual appeared. Tom walked slowly past the first few stalls, checking prices on grain sacks and mechanical parts. He nodded politely to other farmers he knew. He was not planning to spend much today. His main goal was to find something good for dinner. Near the far side of the market, he noticed a stall he had never seen before. It was a small, shadowed tent with strange patterns painted on the fabric. The merchant behind the counter was a tall man with sharp features and a smile that looked forced. "Looking for something special?" the merchant asked. His voice was smooth, almost too smooth. "Maybe," Tom said carefully. "You got any meat? Fresh or preserved?" The man's eyes seemed to brighten. He ducked behind the counter and returned with a large metal container. It was sealed tight and stamped with alien trade symbols Tom could not read. "This, the A," merchant said, patting the container, "comes from the outer systems. Finest preserved cuts you will find in this colony, and cheap, too. The buyer who ordered it never showed up." Tom studied the container. It was heavy, almost too heavy for the size. "How much?" The man named a price that made Tom raise his eyebrows. It was far lower than he expected. Still, Tom was cautious. Meat from the outer systems was rare and sometimes questionable. "Why so cheap?" he asked. The merchant shrugged. "Storage space costs money. I need it gone. I can even arrange delivery to your farm today." Tom hesitated. The smell from the container was faint, but not unpleasant. It might be worth the risk. After a moment, he nodded. "All right. Deal." The merchant's grin widened. "You won't regret it." They sealed the trade, and Tom paid in credit chits. The merchant promised to have the container on Tom's doorstep before evening. When Tom got back to his farm, the container was already waiting for him near the barn. That surprised him. The delivery had been faster than expected. He pulled it into the kitchen, curious to see what he had bought. The lock on the container was simple. With a few clicks, the lid released with a hiss. A rush of cold air escaped. Tom expected to see neatly packed slabs of preserved meat. Instead, two figures were curled up inside. Tom froze. The first was a young woman with silver markings across her cheeks and forehead. Her eyes were a bright, unnatural blue that seemed to glow faintly in the dim kitchen light. Her hair was a pale gold, almost white. She looked up at him with sharp awareness, not fear. Beside her was a smaller girl, maybe in her early teens, with the same markings and hair but softer features. Her eyes were wide with confusion. Tom stepped back, his mind racing. These were not frozen meat shipments. They were alive. The older one moved first, sitting up slowly. Her gaze stayed locked on Tom. "Who are you?" she asked in a quiet but steady voice. "My name's Tom," he said, still shocked. I bought this container from a merchant in town. I thought it had food inside. I didn't know there were people." She studied him for a moment before helping the younger girl climb out of the container. The younger one stayed close, to her side. "I am Mira," the older one said. "This is my sister Lonnie." Tom nodded slowly. "All right, Mira, Lonnie, you're safe here, but how did you end up in there?" Mira glanced toward the door as if expecting someone to come through. At any second, "We were taken," she said simply. "Hidden in cargo for transport off this planet. Whoever you bought this from..." He is not to be trusted." Tom rubbed the back of his neck. "That much I figured. But why would someone hide you in a shipment?" "Where were you going?" Lonnie's voice was small. "We were going nowhere. We were being sold." The weight of her words hit Tom hard. He looked between the two sisters. They didn't look injured, but their clothes were worn and they both seemed tired. "You need food and water," he said, moving to the cupboard. He brought out bread and poured cups of fresh water from the dispenser. They accepted the food, carefully, like they were not used to kindness from strangers. As they ate, Tom noticed how Mira kept her body slightly turned toward Lonnie, always shielding her from the door and window. Whoever these two were, they had been through more than he could guess. When they finished, Tom leaned against the counter. "All right. I don't know what mess I just stepped into, but I'm not letting anyone take you if they mean harm. You can stay here until we figure this out." Mira looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes searched his face as if testing whether his words were worth trusting. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Thank you." Lonnie smiled faintly for the first time since leaving the container. Outside, the suns had moved higher in the sky. The quiet hum of the farm machines carried on as if nothing had changed. But inside Tom's farmhouse, everything had changed. What was supposed to be a simple purchase had turned into something far more complicated. Tom didn't know what trouble might come looking for these two, but he had a feeling it would not take long. And somehow, deep down, he already knew he would not be walking away from whatever came next. The next morning, the suns were still low when Tom woke up. He sat at his small kitchen table, a mug of hot tea in his hands, and glanced toward the guest room. He had given Mira and Lonnie the only extra space he had. The door was closed, but he could hear faint movement inside. Tom's mind had been restless all night. He kept thinking about how the two sisters had been locked in that container. It made no sense. They spoke clearly, looked human enough except for the markings and glowing eyes, and seemed harmless. Yet someone had gone to great lengths to hide them and move them across the planet. When the door opened, Mira stepped out first. Her expression was alert, like she had been awake for hours. Lonnie followed close behind, rubbing her eyes. Tom noticed they had cleaned themselves up a little. "I made breakfast," Tom said, pointing to the table. "It's not much, but it's hot." They sat down, and Lonnie smiled faintly as she took a bite of bread. Mira, however, ate slowly, her eyes still watching Tom as if measuring every word and movement. "I don't want to push," Tom said, "but I need to know what I've gotten into. If someone's looking for you, I need to be ready. You said you were taken." "Taken by who?" Mira set down her cup. "Hunters," she said simply. "They travel between systems looking for people to capture and sell. My sister and I were caught when our home was attacked." "Your home?" Tom repeated. "That's not here, is it?" She shook her head. "No, we are from a world called Shalin. It is many light years away. Our people live quietly, far from most human colonies. But raiders came with ships, burning and taking. Our village was destroyed. Many were captured. Lonnie and I were separated from the others. We were traded from one group to another until we ended up here." Lonnie's voice was small. "We didn't think anyone would help us." Tom leaned back in his chair. He had heard of raiders before, of slave traders moving through the edges of explored space, but he had never seen it reach his quiet colony. It was the kind of thing you read about in distant news reports, not something that arrived at your doorstep in a metal crate. "You said hunters," Tom said. "That merchant who sold me the container. Was he one of them?" Mira's jaw tightened. "Yes, or at least he works for them. They would not just let us go. If they know where we are, they will come." Tom's farm was isolated, but word spread fast in Grayfield. If someone had seen the delivery, it would not be hard for the wrong people to track it back to him. He felt a cold weight in his chest. "I can hide you here for a while," Tom said. "But if they come, this place won't be safe. Do you know where you need to go?" Mira hesitated. There is a place. An old station far from here, near the border of human and alien space. Some of our people escaped there. If we can reach it, we might find others who survived. That's a long trip, Tom said, and dangerous. You don't have a ship, do you? She shook her head. We had nothing but the clothes we wore when we were taken. The only reason we are alive is because they thought we were worth more unhurt. Lani looked down at her plate. Tom could see she was trying not to cry. Tom stood and began clearing the dishes. All right, he said after a moment. I can't promise I can get you to that station, but I can promise I won't hand you over to those hunters. Mira's eyes narrowed slightly. Why? You don't know us. Because it's the right thing to do, Tom answered simply. And because if I bought that container without asking what was inside, then I'm part of this now whether I like it or not. For a long moment they were silent. Then Mira gave a small nod. Then we will trust you. It was the first time she had said the word trust since they met. By midday, Tom decided to take a short trip into town to see if there were rumors about the missing cargo. He left Mira and Lani in the farmhouse with instructions to lock the door and stay away from the windows. The market was quieter than the day before. Farmers sold vegetables and merchants packed their stalls. Tom moved through the crowd, listening without drawing attention to himself. It didn't take long before he overheard two men talking near a supply shop. Merchants furious, one said, says someone took his shipment right under his nose. Thought he sold it, the other replied. He did, but now he says the buyer's not answering calls. And there was more in that shipment than he told anyone. Tom kept walking, heart beating faster. They were already looking for him. When he reached home, Mira was waiting by the window, tense. Someone came by while you were gone, she said. They knocked for a long time, but we did not answer. Tom set down his bag. It's starting already. We don't have much time. Lani glanced between them. What do we do? Tom looked at Mira. You said there's a station where your people are. How far is it? Far enough that we would need a ship, she replied. But there might be one at the old mining outpost beyond the wastes. My father told stories about ships hidden there long ago. If we could reach it. She trailed off, as if unsure whether to believe her own hope. Tom nodded slowly. Then that's where we'll go. It would mean leaving behind his farm, his quiet life, and the safety of the colony. But looking at the two sisters, Tom knew there was no choice anymore. The hunters would come, and when they did, he would be ready to run. The truth was out now, and with it came danger. But it also gave them a direction, a chance to fight back against the fate the hunters had planned for them. The air around Grayfield felt heavier in the days that followed. Tom kept to his farm, working the fields by day but always keeping one eye on the horizon. Mira and Lani stayed indoors most of the time, only coming out at night to breathe the cooler air. The first sign of real trouble came on the third evening. Tom had just returned from repairing a water pump when he spotted a sleek black vehicle parked far down the dirt road. Two men stood beside it, talking quietly, their eyes scanning the fields. They stayed only a few minutes before leaving, but Tom knew it was not a random visit. When he told Mira, she stiffened. They are scouts, she said. They look for signs before the hunters move in. That night, Tom sat at the kitchen table with Mira, going over the map he had pulled from his storage chest. It was old and worn, showing the dusty plains to the north and the long stretch of barren land known as the wastes. Beyond that was the old mining outpost she had spoken of. It's 2 days' travel by cart, Tom said. If we go by the main road, they'll see us. But there's a service track along the irrigation lines. Few people use it. It will be slower, Mira replied, tracing the route with her finger. But safer. If we can reach the outpost without being seen, we might find that ship. Lani sat nearby, hugging her knees. What if there is no ship? She asked. Then we find another way. Tom said firmly. "But staying here is not an option." The next morning, Tom went into town to buy supplies. He avoided the market square and instead visited a small store run by an old friend, Martin, who kept a few things for emergencies. Tom picked up water canisters, sealed ration packs, a spare power cell, and a small medical kit. "You going somewhere?" Martin asked, raising an eyebrow. "Just some extra supplies for the farm," Tom answered casually. Martin studied him for a moment but didn't press. "Be careful. There have been strangers asking questions around here." Tom left quickly, not wanting to linger. As he walked back to the cart, a voice called out behind him. "Well now, if it isn't the man who likes a good bargain." Tom turned. The merchant from the market stood leaning against a post, his sharp smile as unsettling as before. "Still enjoying that special purchase?" the merchant asked, his eyes glinting. Tom kept his tone flat. "I got what I paid for." "Oh, I think you got more than you paid for," the merchant said. "And I think we both know the kind of value that comes with it." He stepped closer. "Hand them over, and I'll forget about the deal. You walk away richer, and no one has to come looking for you." Tom felt his jaw tighten. "Not interested?" The merchant's smile faded just slightly. "Think carefully. There are people willing to pay far more than you could earn in a lifetime. You can't protect them forever, but you could profit from letting them go." Tom met his gaze without flinching. "I'm not selling anyone." The merchant studied him for a moment, then gave a slow, mocking nod. "Very noble. Very foolish. You'll change your mind when you see what's coming." He turned and walked, away, blending into the flow of townsfolk. Tom didn't wait to see if anyone was following him. He returned to the farm as quickly as possible. When he told Mira about the encounter, her eyes hardened. "They will not bargain much longer. If he offered you a trade today, tomorrow they will take without asking. Then we leave tonight," Tom said. "Pack only what you can carry." By nightfall, the hovercart was loaded with supplies. Mira and Lonnie wore cloaks to hide their features. The farm lights were switched off to avoid drawing attention. They followed the narrow service track north, the hum of the cart engine low against the sound of the wind. The track wound through empty fields, then into dry scrubland. The stars above were bright, the twin moons casting pale light across the land. Hours passed without trouble, but Tom's nerves stayed sharp. Twice he stopped to listen, thinking. He heard another engine far off. Mira kept watch, her eyes scanning the darkness. Around midnight, they reached a narrow bridge over a dry riverbed. Tom slowed the cart, sensing movement ahead. A single light appeared on the far side, and a figure stepped into view. It was a man wearing a dust cloak, holding a small lantern. "Travelers," he called out. "Need a place to rest?" Tom didn't answer. His hand tightened on the control lever. Mira leaned close and whispered, "It's a trap." The man waved as if friendly, but Tom could see shapes moving behind him in the shadows. He turned the cart sharply, steering down a side path that cut along the riverbed itself. Shouts erupted behind them, and engines roared to life. "They're following!" Laney cried. "Hold on," Tom said, pushing the cart faster. The rough ground made the ride bumpy, but it gave them cover from the lights chasing them. The path wound between high banks of dirt before opening back into the open plain. Tom kept the engine at full power until the lights behind them were no longer visible. Only then did he slow enough for the cart's power cell to recover. Mira glanced back into the dark. "They will not stop. They want us alive, and they know we cannot stay hidden forever." "Then we make sure we stay ahead of them," Tom said. "If we can reach the outpost before sunrise, we might have a chance." The night stretched on, the road ahead empty except for the pale line of the horizon. They were running now, and the bargain the merchant had offered was behind them. The only deal Tom was willing to make was with himself, that no matter what happened, the sisters would not fall back into the hands of the hunters. The first light of dawn spread across the sky as Tom guided the hovercart toward the edge of the wastes. The land ahead stretched wide and empty, nothing but dry soil, scattered rock, and sharp ridges shaped by the wind. The air felt thinner, here, carrying a faint metallic taste. Tom had been through the wastes once before, years ago, helping a friend deliver equipment to a mining crew. He remembered the long silence, the way the heat built during the day, and the cold cut deep at night. It was no place to linger, but now it was their only road to safety. Mira sat beside him in the front, her hood pulled low to shade her eyes. Lonnie sat in the back, wrapped in a blanket, still sleepy from the long night. Tom glanced at the horizon and then at the tracker on the console. No signals yet. That was good. But it would not stay that way forever. "Once we pass the ridge," Tom said, pointing ahead, "there's no cover for 20 kilometers. If they follow, we'll see them, but they'll see us too." Mira's gaze stayed on the path. "Then we must cross it quickly." The cart hummed over the hard ground, dust kicking up behind the wheels. By mid-morning, the suns were higher, pouring heat down on the land. Tom kept the cart at steady speed to save power, knowing they would need the extra energy if they had to outrun anyone. Around noon, they stopped in the shadow of a tall rock spire to rest. Tom checked the power cell, topping it up with the spare he had brought. Lonnie drank water slowly, her eyes scanning the wide emptiness. "It feels like the world is watching us," she said quietly. "That's because we have no walls here," Tom replied. "Everything is open. Out here, you see danger coming from far away, but danger sees you too." They were back on the move within 15 minutes. The ground began to rise, forming a low ridge ahead. As they climbed, Tom's stomach tightened. The view on the other side was worse than he remembered. The land stretched flat for as far as the eye could see, the surface broken only by the remains of old mining equipment half buried in sand. "This is where we will be most exposed," Mira said. Tom didn't answer. He pushed the cart faster. The hum of the engine grew louder in the still air. It was halfway across that open stretch when Mira suddenly turned in her seat. "There," she said sharply, pointing behind them. Tom followed her gaze. Far in the distance, two black dots were moving along the horizon. They were too far to hear yet, but he knew the sound would come soon. "They found us," Tom said. He pressed the throttle forward, feeling the cart surge. The ground blurred beneath them. Laney clung to the side rail, her blanket falling into the dust. The dots grew larger. Engines roared faintly in the distance now, a steady sound that made the back of Tom's neck prickle. "They have faster vehicles," Mira warned. "Maybe," Tom said, "but I know this land better." Ahead, the flat ground dipped into a narrow gully carved by old floodwaters. Tom steered into it, the cart bouncing over uneven rock. The high sides gave them cover from sight, but the path was twisting and rough. The pursuers followed. The sound of their engines echoed along the gully walls, growing louder. "Hold on," Tom called out. He took a sharp turn where the gully split, heading toward a stretch of broken ground. Here, the rock jutted upward in sharp points and narrow. Gaps made the way dangerous. The first pursuing engine sound faded slightly, then there was a loud metallic crash behind them. Mira looked back. "One of them hit the rocks," she said. "That gives us a little more time," Tom said, pushing ahead. They broke free from the gully onto a slope of loose gravel. The cart slid slightly before catching traction again. At the bottom of the slope was a cluster of jagged hills. Tom stopped there and cut the engine. "We walk for a bit. The cart's noise will carry too far." Mira and Lonnie climbed out, pulling their cloaks tight against the wind. They moved carefully through the hills, using the rock formations as cover. After an hour, they reached a high ledge overlooking the plain beyond. From here, Tom could see the dark shapes of the mining outpost far in the distance. It looked small from this far away, but it was their goal. Between them and it lay another wide stretch of open sand. "They'll expect us to go straight there," Tom said. "We'll move around the edge instead. using the dunes to hide our tracks. By late afternoon, the heat began to fade. The sky turned gold, then deep red as the suns lowered. They returned to the cart and drove in short bursts, stopping often, to listen for pursuit. Once, far to the east, they saw dust trails, but they faded quickly into the haze. When night came, the temperature dropped fast. Tom stopped near the base of a dune and set up a small heat lamp for them to warm their hands. They ate quietly, each listening to the soft whistle of the wind across the sand. "Do you think they will find us tonight?" Lonnie asked. "Not if. We keep moving," Tom said. "We'll take shifts. One of us stays awake while the others rest," Mira agreed, taking the first watch. Tom lay down under his blanket, staring at the stars above. He thought about the merchant's offer, about the black vehicle he had seen on the road, and about the long road still ahead. He closed his eyes for a short while, but every small sound made him open them again. Somewhere out there, the hunters were still moving. Somewhere ahead, a ship might be waiting. Between the two lay only the endless wastes and their will to survive. The sun was just beginning to rise when Tom, Mira, and Lonnie finally saw the mining outpost. It looked small and forgotten, half buried in the sand and worn down by years of wind and dust. The metal buildings were rusted and the tall towers leaned, as if they might fall at any moment. But it was the only hope they had. Tom slowed the hover cart and stopped near the edge of the outpost. He looked around carefully. There was no sign of life, only silence and the faint sound of wind through broken windows. "This place feels like a ghost town," Tom said. Mira nodded. "It has been empty for years. The last survivors left long ago." Lonnie looked nervous, but tried to hide it. "Do you really think there is a ship here?" Tom pointed to a low building half covered by sand. "If your father's stories were true, it should be under that. Let's hope the ship still works." They walked toward the building. The sand was soft and every step left a deep print. Tom's boots sank in as he looked for any signs of recent activity. At the entrance, they found a heavy metal door, half open. Mira pushed it gently. It creaked and moved slowly, revealing a dark space inside. Tom pulled out a small flashlight and led the way. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of oil and metal. The walls were covered in old control panels, wires, and dusty tools. In the center was the ship, a sleek craft smaller than most starships, but still powerful. Its surface was scratched and covered with sand, but the shape was clear. It looked like it could fly again with some work. Tom walked around the ship, inspecting it closely. The hull is damaged, but nothing too bad. The engines need power cells, and the control systems will take time to fix. Mira examined a panel on the side. "This is what we need. If we can get this ship working, we can leave this place behind." Lonnie sat on a crate watching. "What if the hunters catch us here?" Tom looked at her and smiled. "Then we fight or run. But first, we need to be ready." As they worked, Tom found spare parts and tools scattered around the building. He opened boxes filled with old cables, power packs, and repair kits. With Mira's help, he began repairing the ship's systems. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and the heat grew stronger outside. Inside, the team worked silently, focused on the ship. Tom could feel the weight of their hope resting on every bolt and wire. Suddenly, a sharp noise came from outside, the sound of engines. Tom froze. He looked toward the door and then out a small window. Dust clouds rose in the distance. The hunters had found them. Mira grabbed Tom's arm. "We have little time," Tom nodded. "We need to finish what we can and be ready to move." Lonnie's eyes were wide with fear. "Can the ship fly now?" "Almost," Tom said. "Just a few more minutes." The noise grew louder. Tom and Mira worked faster, connecting the final circuits and loading the power cells. Outside, the hunters' vehicles approached the outpost, raising dust and noise. Tom activated the ship's control panel. Lights flickered on, and the engines hummed softly. "We are ready," Tom said. "Get aboard." Mira and Lonnie hurried into the ship as Tom climbed in last. The door sealed shut behind them. Tom reached for the controls and started the engines. The ship shook as power surged through the systems. Outside, the hunters arrived at the door, pounding on the metal with heavy tools. The ship's engines roared louder. Tom pushed the throttle forward. The ship lifted off the ground, rising above the outpost and into the sky. Dust and debris blew in all directions as the ship accelerated. The hunters shouted and gestured below, but there was no way to reach them. Tom steered the ship toward the stars, leaving the burning outpost behind. Mira sat beside him, her eyes filled with relief. Lonnie smiled, finally safe. Tom felt a new strength inside. They had escaped the wastes, escaped the hunters, and now had a chance to find the survivors on Shaylin. The ship's engines hummed steadily as Tom guided them away from the dusty planet. Outside the window, the wastes grew smaller, and the blackness of space stretched wide before them. Stars twinkled in the distance like tiny jewels scattered across a velvet cloth. Mira sat beside him, her eyes scanning the control panel. Lonnie was near the back, still holding on to the blanket Tom had given her. The quiet inside the ship was different from the tense silence on the ground. It felt safer here, but Tom knew it would not last. Suddenly, a red alert light flashed on the console. A sharp beep filled the cockpit. Tom leaned forward, his fingers moving quickly over the controls. "Scanners show 3 ships closing fast," Mira said. Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it. "Hunters," Tom said. They didn't give up. He pushed the throttle forward. The ship responded with a powerful surge. The stars ahead stretched into long streaks as they entered faster than light. Travel. But the hunters followed, their own engines flaring as they jumped through space. Tom had little time to think. He remembered the stories Mira had told about her people's star routes, hidden paths between asteroids and gas clouds where ships could hide. "Can you guide me?" Tom asked Mira. She nodded. "There is a field of ion storms near the Nebula Ridge. It's dangerous, but we can use it to lose them." Tom adjusted the course, steering the ship toward the glowing clouds of charged particles. The ship trembled as it entered the storm. Lightning flashed outside, lighting the cockpit in blue and white. The hunters were close behind, but the storm was chaotic. Sensors flickered and communication signals broke up. "Hold on," Tom said, gripping the controls tightly. The ship shook violently. Lonnie gasped, clutching the blanket. Mira's face was steady, but Tom saw her hands tighten into fists. The hunters tried to follow, but one of their ships suddenly disappeared from the radar. Tom smiled slightly. "One down." The storm lasted for several minutes, each second, feeling like a test of their strength and skill. When they finally emerged on the other side, the stars returned to normal, and the ship's systems settled. Tom glanced behind. 2 hunters remained, still chasing. "We lost one," Mira said. "But they will not give up." Tom's mind raced. "We need to be smarter, faster." He steered the ship toward a dense asteroid field. The rocky bodies moved slowly in space, creating a maze of shadows and dangers. The hunters followed, but Tom used every trick he knew. He dove between asteroids, making sharp turns. The smaller size of their ship gave them an advantage. One hunter tried to cut through a narrow gap but clipped a rock. The ship tumbled, engines sparking. It vanished from their radar. 2 down, Tom said, feeling hope rise. Only one ship remained, pushing hard to catch them. Mira pointed to a distant space station hidden behind a giant asteroid. "That is where my people once hid. We can make it." Tom nodded. "We'll try." The final chase was tense. The hunters closed in, firing pulses of energy that streaked past their ship. Tom focused on the controls, dodging and weaving. Just As the hunters prepared to fire again, Tom made a sudden dive toward the asteroid, using the largest rock as a shield. The hunters' shots hit the asteroid, causing small explosions and debris to scatter. Using the distraction, Tom accelerated, steering the ship into the station's hidden dock. They landed safely inside the quiet hangar. The heavy doors closed behind them, sealing out the danger. Tom exhaled deeply. Mira smiled, relief shining in her eyes. Lonnie hugged Tom's arm tightly. "We made it," Mira said softly. "But the hunters won't stop," Tom reminded them. Mira nodded. "No, but here, we have time. We will find others. We will plan." Tom looked at the sisters and felt a strong bond. What began as a strange mistake had become something greater, a mission to save lives, a fight for freedom. For now, they were safe. But the stars were vast, and the hunters would be waiting. Tom set the ship's systems to rest mode and looked. Out at the nebula outside, the future was uncertain, but together they would face it. The hidden space station was quiet, its walls lined with soft lights and humming machines. Tom stepped out of the ship with Mira and Laney following close behind. The air was cool and smelled faintly of metal and fresh air filters. It felt different from the dusty planet they had left behind. Here, everything was still, like waiting for a new life to begin. Mira led them down long corridors, her steps sure and steady. Tom noticed small signs in an alien language he did not understand, but Mira read them easily. Lonnie looked around with wide eyes, her curiosity replacing the fear she had carried for so long. "This is where some of my people escaped to," Mira explained. "After the raiders attacked, we hid here and built a safe place." Tom looked around. The station was old but well kept. There were rooms for living, places for learning, and even gardens growing under bright lights. The walls held pictures of other alien faces, some smiling, some serious. It was a community waiting to grow. As they walked, a group of figures appeared, from the shadows. They were aliens like Mira and Laney, with similar silver markings and glowing eyes. Their faces lit up with surprise and hope when they saw Mira. "Sira," one said softly, "you have returned." Mira smiled warmly. "And I have brought friends." Tom felt a strange warmth. He had never seen so many of her people before. They looked tired but strong, ready to rebuild after so much loss. One of the elders stepped forward. His eyes were kind but full of wisdom. "Welcome, Tom," he said. "You saved our sisters. For that you have our thanks." Tom nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "I just did what I thought was right." The elder placed a hand on Mira's shoulder. "You have brought hope back to us. We were few and afraid. Now we can plan again." Days passed quickly in the station. Tom helped repair systems on the ship and around the station. Mira taught him about her people's history and their peaceful ways. Lonnie smiled more each day, playing with other children and learning new things. The hunters who chased them were far behind now. The station's hidden location and strong defenses made it safe. For the moment. One evening, Tom stood outside a large window watching the stars. Mira joined him, her gaze soft. "Thank you, Tom," she said quietly. "You gave us a chance." "We thought was lost." Tom smiled. "I couldn't have done it without you. You and Lonnie taught me more about courage than I ever knew." Mira looked at him, then away. "If you ever choose to stay, this will be your home too." Tom felt a pull in his heart. His quiet farm, the simple life he had known, it was behind him now. Ahead was a new path, with new friends and new challenges. "We will need to prepare," the elder said one morning. "The hunters will not give up, but we are stronger together." Tom nodded. "Then we fight with all we have." The station began to grow, with new arrivals from hidden places. Ships came quietly in the night, bringing survivors and hope. Tom worked alongside Mira and others, ready for whatever came next. For the first time in a long while, Tom felt that he belonged somewhere, not just as a protector, but as part of something bigger. The stars outside continued to shine, endless and full of promise. And under those stars, Tom, Mira, Lanny, and their people faced the future together, with hope, courage, and a new beginning.